In spring 2015, American presidents enjoyed massive global popularity. In India, the U.S. held a 70% positive rating, a high watermark for diplomatic trust. Donald Trump upended that stability. By bypassing traditional channels and alienating long-term partners, his administration exercised American power in a way that actively tested the existing international order. This map shows the 36 nations recently surveyed by Pew Research. As we follow the trend lines, a pattern emerges: a universal drop in global confidence regarding the United States' reliability as a partner. This shift goes beyond a simple drop in popularity. 56% of the surveyed global population now believes the U.S. does not respect the liberties of its own citizens. For a majority of those polled, American moral authority has evaporated. But this decline is not uniform across the globe.
When we look at the specific data points, the loss of American reliability is fragmented and defies standard geopolitical expectations. This graphic compares two different realities. On one side is the traditional map of U.S. alliances based on formal treaties. On the other is a map based on actual Pew approval data. Where U.S. approval survives contradicts decades of diplomatic logic. Allied nations show double-digit declines in approval, while certain non-aligned or controversial nations show steady or even rising support. Formal treaties and shared democratic ideals no longer explain these trends. To find the source of this disconnect, we have to look at the specific outlier nations where the old rules no longer seem to apply. Turkey is a prime example of this fractured alliance. It is a critical NATO member, located at a strategic global crossroads, and it is the only NATO nation in Asia where America stores nuclear weapons. Despite that military integration, the survey data is stark. 92% of the Turkish public expresses a total lack of confidence in Donald Trump. Then there is Pakistan. Listed as a major non-NATO ally, the Pakistani government actively markets its partnership with the U.S., even producing stylized music videos to signal a close bond. But the public sentiment tells a different story. Only 12% of Pakistanis surveyed actually have confidence in the American president. While rejecting American leadership, 83% of the Pakistani public expresses high confidence in China's leader, Xi Jinping. Official diplomatic titles like NATO ally become secondary when the actual citizenry expresses such high levels of no confidence in American leadership. This rejection among allies is tied to specific policy decisions. Across the surveyed nations, there is intense disapproval of how the U.S. handles international crises and trade. This chart tracks that disapproval. Negative sentiment reaches 76% for Gaza, 77% for tariffs, 74% on Iran, and 72% for the war in Ukraine. However, a handful of nations are bucking this worldwide trend. Israel maintains a 66% confidence rating in Trump. This is heavily driven by a specific demographic: 58% approval among Israeli Jews. In Hungary, Trump retains a 44% confidence rating, a survival of support that aligns with the country's right-wing political direction. India stands out as the most significant major nation outlier. Despite the global crash in confidence, Trump maintains a surprisingly resilient 39% rating there. American support now appears to depend less on broad diplomatic consensus and more on specific nations where localized populist interests align with the administration's agenda. To understand why India supports the U.S. while other middle-income nations do not, we have to look at one specific metric: the perception of foreign interference. This scale shows the consensus among 17 middle-income nations. A median of 75% of people believe the U.S. actively interferes in their country's internal affairs. Even within the United States, 83% of the American public agrees that their own country interferes abroad. India is the only surveyed middle-income country where this is a minority opinion. Less than half of the public believes the U.S. interferes in their internal politics. High levels of U.S. approval appear to persist only in countries where the public does not feel currently threatened or manipulated by American geopolitical maneuvering. This data leads to a central paradox in the modern American global image. 80% of the world now views Donald Trump as arrogant. Furthermore, 65% of the globe views him as a danger to international stability. This Venn diagram shows the overlap. While 80% see him as arrogant and 65% see him as dangerous,
67% of respondents simultaneously classify him as a strong leader. The map of global trust has shifted. Shared democratic values and long-term treaties are no longer the primary drivers of alliance. Instead, the data suggests a move toward transactional partnerships and an appetite for strongman politics.